In this video, I want to talk about two highly important concepts called pass-by value and pass-by reference. Pass-by value and pass-by reference pertain to using value of specific data types as function arguments and its impact on the original value. And I think these two concepts are very important because it deals with using data as passing arguments, and if you don't really understand how to use them correctly, you might be changing some piece of data that you're not intended to, or conversely, not changing some piece of data that you would like to have it changed. So let's first look at pass-by value. Pass-by value is when you pass in an argument using the data type that is primitive. Primitive data types are data types that are non-array or non-object types. So this includes stuff like integers, float, booleans, and when you use these type of data types as passed in arguments, the value is copied and passed into the function, which means that the original value within that variable is not changed. Let's see an example. Let's say that I have a variable called x that is set to 100, and then I have a function called move, and move takes in one parameter, and I'm gonna name that parameter location x, loc x, and this loc x basically is incrementing by 1 unit. And now what I want to do is that I want to call this and pass in a value of the data type integer, right? Which is a primitive type. So if I pass in here and then I print x, what do you think is going to happen to x? X remains the same at 100 because what is passed into x here is the value 100. Now, loc x is set to 100 and then it increments by 1. But the original value of x still stayed the same at 100. So let's say that you draw an ellipse at x location, right? And then you think that, hey, if I do this, if I move x, then x will move. But because it is a primitive type, the circle remains at the same location. Let's talk about pass-by reference. Pass-by reference is when you pass in the non-primitive type into a function, and these are objects and arrays. When an array and an object is passed into a function, instead of the value being copied into the function, what is being copied is actually the memory address of that array or that object. So when you change something in that function, it changes the value in the original container. So now let's say that I have a class and then I say this class is called, let's just do ball, and ball only have one thing, which is the data x, and I set x equals to 100. So now I'm going to create an object called b, and b is a new ball, right? So now what we need to do is that we need to modify this function move. I want to pass in an object instead. So I'm gonna keep it as loc, right? But then now I need to access loc.x because I want to grab the value of x of that ball, and then I want to increment it by 1. So now with move, I will pass in an object b, right? And now I'm gonna change the size here to be 30. So now what if we print b.x, which is the x location of the object b, right? What we would assume is that the original value of b.x would be changed, right? From 100 to 101 and so on. So let's see. And that is exactly what happens. So if you use either an object or an array as passing arguments, b.x, your object or your circle will move from left to right. That's why it's really important for you to understand these concepts and use them correctly as passing arguments to really understand if you will be modifying the original value of your data or not.